Good evening, guys. My name is Patrick Blaschik, and today I'm going to be talking about the Last Mile project in Tanzania. So let's get started. Just a little bit of a background. Tanzania has a massive public health crisis right now. I mean, it's not really right now. It's been going on for a while. They have a very high HIV and AIDS rate, as well as 11% of the children that are under the age of 18 are actually orphans right now. The rural infrastructure that they have, it's not really sufficient enough to allow all these trucks and delivery vehicles to bring all the necessary health supplies that they need. And Coca-Cola has this massive distribution network available, and they want to make sure that, other people can utilize it for something that is incredible. Something that affects everybody in the third world as well, not just in the Western United States. So the key strategic issues that the whole project in Tanzania faces at the moment is there's a high expenditure still in advertising and marketing happening in the United States market. Coke is still trying to hang on to their market share against Pepsi and other suppliers. The deliveries and stockouts pose the most important problem because the stockouts are happening because more resources are getting sent to certain places that don't need as much. So there's just an incongruence in demand versus actual supply being sent. And with the deliveries, we'll explain it in depth, but basically it's just very tough to get to certain rural areas with delivery vehicles, as well as regulating the temperatures for different medicines. Adding these essential health supplies into the mix is going to add an uncontrollable variable, and Coke does not like uncontrollable variables, okay? They spent 50 years trying to get the bottling processes back in-house, right? So that is a major expedition that they were on, and I don't think that they really like working with uncontrollable variables, but we'll see since they don't produce the medicines in-house. So here's just another little chart to drive this point home. It takes a little snapshot out of the case. It's a little bit more expanded, but these are just looking at the years 2013 to 2015. And as you can see, the advertising expenditure for these companies is absolutely out of this world. Coke spent $4 billion on advertising every year since 2015. And in my opinion, it might be time to call it a day, in a sense, in this market. Because as the CSD consumption in America is falling, I don't understand why Coke doesn't just try to do what it did in the 50s and expand the markets to overseas. So here's another chart that just shows you, even though Coke spent all this money on advertisement, I mean, so did Pepsi to be fair, their net income was much lower than Pepsi's, as well as the revenue. So not only are they spending more money trying to produce their products than Pepsi, they're also selling less of them at the moment. So here we go. The delivery, like I said, is going to be the main focus of this problem because that is the central focus in the case. Some things that deliveries have to have in these kinds of countries is they have to be readily available to reach every point in the world, right? And this brings me back to the soda distribution. It's kind of similar. I'm not going to compare vaccines to soda, but in soda, they want to reach as far as they can into the market as well to optimize the revenue stream. So that is why they already have the infrastructure in place to be able to reach these places. Like I said, the problems were navigation of roads in rural places is difficult. A lot of rural roads change every day because of the weather and the forecasting, so the same routes might not be able to be taken twice. Another factor that stopped Coke from even trying to expand into these markets right now in Africa is because the cost of the delivery doesn't really outweigh the profit that they make from the delivery. And this is because of two reasons. One is because the delivery sizes are very small in these rural areas, so the cost of the shipment isn't really paid for with the actual sum of the shipment. And then the other reason is just the fact that it's not cost profitable at the end of the day for them. But the difference is obviously vaccines are a humanitarian issue. Price shouldn't be a deciding factor when it comes to saving somebody's life, no matter what part of the country they live in, or part of the world they live in, excuse me. So the problems continue. A lot of them were listed in the case, but I expanded on it a little bit. Deficient budgetary allocation is very self-explanatory. They're just sending money into the wrong places or not at all. Delays in dispersal of funds, just a regular bureaucratic line that you got to wait in. A lot of it is lost or misplaced, and a lot of it's still paperwork, so that's a massive issue. Delays in physical delivery because of trucks breaking down, maintenance, forecasts in the weather that make it impossible to ship. Theft is a massive problem there. We don't really think about that in America because not as many people would be willing to rob a medical truck of supplies here. But over there, it's a huge thing because the black market sells these things for more competitive rates than most other companies, I would say. To continue, the inaccurate demand of forecasts, which is what I talked about earlier. They're sending supplies to some areas and then they have too many vaccines in the area that aren't being used. Most of these vaccines have a expiration date, obviously, so those then become useless. And meanwhile, other places are in need of them. Faulty backorder systems. This is just legacy software that's absolutely outdated, to put it in better words. But yeah, their backorder systems are just bad. So a lot of orders get lost, and the whole logistics chain just gets messed up because of it. And lastly, the cold delivery transportation is super important because, for example, 2 different types of medicine may have a potency threshold that expires after a certain temperature. So if you don't store it correctly, that medicine might get there and not work. So the way to fix that is to make sure that everything's being stored in the proper temperature, which causes another problem because certain medicines you can't keep in tandem with others because they require different temperatures. For example, if you cool the truck, one might be potent while the other one becomes useless, and as if you don't cool it, vice versa. So you get the idea of that. Solutions are going to be Liberia and Sierra Leone were like the first 2 last mile project focus areas. So they had massive success in Liberia. The stockouts were reduced from 90% to 70%. They had 40% increased stock across the board. So there's precedent for all of this, and to not utilize it would just be ignoring free facts that may help you along the journey. So that is very important for Coke to do. We talk about the insulation of transported materials. Once again, it's a matter of potency. So if you can keep certain materials from becoming cold or hot, while other ones need to be cold or hot, that is the ideal scenario. And there's ways of doing that, like insulation material. Using real-time data, so like I said, the routes can change because of the weather, etc. So through the GPS, drivers can actually update the routes that they used every day or every week whenever they go. And because of that, they'll have more of a route guidance on how to get to these places. The picture that you're seeing is a group of researchers next to a drone that now delivers vaccines. And obviously drones have a lot of benefits that come when you compare them to giant trucks, but also one drawback, which is the size and quantity of vaccines they can carry. But they can get to hard to reach places much faster and unimpaired by the terrain or whatever may be, weather forecasts, etc. Well, the weather forecast would still matter, but the terrain wouldn't matter. Lastly, for the solutions, I really want to touch base on Risto's experience because Ristov, he has been at Coke forever, and as a star child, the 9 years that he spent at Coke, he did absolutely amazing. So they have somebody that knows how to streamline these processes. It's been proven because he's done it for Coke. So it would be stupid to ignore this valuable resource and try to fix this in other ways without putting him in the front line and letting him choose what he wants to do in a sense. So looking forward, Bill Gates talks about the Golden Triangle a lot, but I'm just going to read you this quote by one of his VPs, one of the VPs at Coke, and hopefully it'll give you some insight. With Project Last Mile's strong emphasis on country ownership and its ability to bring together the Golden Triangle of civil society, government, and the private sector, the initiative will bring more essential and life-changing products to more and more people across Africa. Excuse me. So the point of this was we're not going to be able to solve this just approaching it from a business sense. We're not going to be able to solve this just approaching it from a humanitarian aspect. It's going to take the triangle formation from a lot of different factors to come together and cooperate in order to make this work. So the whole point of the quote that I'm trying to drive home here is that with the use of civil society, which is, for example, don't rob the trucks that are carrying the medicine for the people, government, which is don't impose regulations and tariffs or other impositions on what can make the process easier for the company, rather, or for the country and the world, rather aid them in making it as easy and efficient as possible, and the private sector. And this one's very important because Coke has this massive distribution network and all these resources, not only financial, but they know where to go for everything they need. The corporation is so big that there's not a resource that they can't access, right? So they need to use this power to make and give it back to the people. It's not just about making money with this. It's more about saving lives and doing the right thing, in my opinion, which is something that corporations also don't really do a whole lot. They're more focused on the bottom line rather than doing the right thing. But, that's the end. I hope it gives you a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on with this last mile project, not only in Tanzania, but its general purpose as well. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.